Hello and welcome to the NextPowerUp review of Trine 3 Artifacts of Power. This is a game by Frozen Byte and it is the third in the Trine series. Now, there's been a lot of stuff up in the air about this game recently, particularly to do with the 3D movement that they've now implemented as opposed to the standard 2D scrolling platformer that the other two games were, and of course the length. And I can kind of see where people are coming from. So first up, we'll take a look at the video options menu, and there are two. So the primary options menu for tweakers is obviously the launcher that we have here, and it is a little bit light on the ground, to say the least. So we have your standard resolution selection options. Obviously it does support 4K, which is nice, and there's been plenty of games which for some reason don't support 4K, even new ones. Bizarrely, the full screen and windowed full screen and just windowed is under the 60 hertz option for some obscure reason. Not quite sure why that is. Vertical sync obviously on and off that standard stuff. There is no FPS cap, although there is an option for it in game, which is pretty cool to have. Anti-aliasing, you have two things to choose from. FXAA, which is perfectly acceptable, pretty good, does its job well. It's the only anti-aliasing you really need, and super sample anti-aliasing, which will absolutely murder your graphics card. On 4K, I can get about 57 FPS average, with maximum settings and FXAA, but with super sample anti-aliasing on maximum, just 4 times, I get crippled right down to 16 FPS. So yeah, that slaughters your machine. I see no reason to use super sample anti-aliasing unless you are on a very low resolution and you have quite a bit of GPU horsepower and you decide to use that over standard anti-aliasing. I'm sure you can probably force some form of anti-aliasing in your graphics control panel anyway. Graphics details come from very low to very high. You've got stereoscopic 3D, which I don't have 3D. Interestingly, you do have a choice for mods and there's an editor, but we didn't really get into that, so I'll jump into the game. Peculiarly, the game either takes absolutely ages to load, say about a minute, or it loads very quickly like this. So in here we have the enable FPS cap, and then you can select what FPS cap you want, and it is numeric value, so you can type it in with your numpad, which is brilliant. I haven't seen a game do that in a very long time. That's pretty awesome. You have your UI scale, which is also pretty good if you're on 4K, particularly on smaller monitors like mine, and stereoscopic 3D settings. Other than that, you've got a couple of bits here. I forgot to change that earlier. There we go. Right, so we'll jump straight into the single player game. Skip this nonsense. So this is the map, and I was a little bit taken aback because this is it. This is the whole game. And the most disappointing aspect of this is this mission is your tutorial for the warrior. This mission is your tutorial for the thief, and this mission is a tutorial for the mage. So that leaves you with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 missions of actual gameplay. That's the story, that's it. You only get 5 missions. Each mission might take you about half an hour each in total, if all you ever did is the missions and got the bare minimum triangles required to unlock these missions. You could do it in 2 evenings. Me and my friend Bradley, we did it in 2 evenings worth of work. We fucked about quite a bit and we still managed to complete it. And the most annoying part is that when we completed it, we didn't believe we'd completed it, because it's very clear that the story is going in a certain direction and the trine shatters and you have to collect all the pieces, and you collect 1 trine piece and that's it. That's the end of the game. So it's almost as if they had a story in mind, they had a full game in mind, and then they just ran out of money after they implemented the 3D movement, and that was it. So I have completed it, but on a previous save. So we're going to go to the second to last mission. Obviously, the big circles are the main missions, and these little circles here are the side missions, which you can use to unlock more triangles. You get 25 from each, guaranteed, unless you faff about a little bit too much. And some of them are quite challenging. And the thing with these side missions is that they are specific to a character. So you'll see the ones with bows are for the thief, the ones with the wizard hat are for the wizard and the boxes, and the ones for the warrior has got the sword and the helmet. Um, we'll quickly jump into the main mission because that's just going to showcase some of the, the big aspects of gameplay. As you can see, I completed this online and it's kept my progress so far. So we'll jump into the start of this mission anyway. It's definitely one of the prettiest indie games available. So as you can see, this has got the graphics quality of a AAA game, but it just seems like they've gone from really, really, really good looking graphics and then applied as many like lighting effects as humanly possible, and I'm not too sure about the lighting effects, if I'm brutally honest. I think the game would have looked pretty enough without them, but I can see why some of them are necessary for the water and stuff. Shiny things make things appear to be a lot better than they already are. If you've already collected Trine angles, they come up as ghosts for you, but if you're in multiplayer, they'll obviously come up as orange for other people. Interesting fact about Pontius is that he can endlessly gain height while jumping, because basically you jump, wall jump, use your shield, 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 until you hit the skyboxes, of course, which A, makes him actually useful for once, but B, kind of makes him a little bit overpowered for just ignoring puzzles entirely. They have changed the wizard, which is one thing I'm pretty pissed off about, to be perfectly honest. In the first two games, you would draw planks or draw boxes of varying sizes, and people, that was kind of cool. People got used to that very quickly, and it was part of the wizard's thing. But it kind of feels like they've ruined that a bit by just making it a bit too simplified. And so all you do now is press F to create your box, and then you can move it around, and you can left click while you're holding it to slam it down like that, but I'm a little disappointed with the way they messed around with the mage, to be brutally honest. And this 3D stuff is really, really quite irritating. Like, the depth perception has been done pretty badly. So there are a couple of challenge missions where you're playing as the rogue, and you can, instead of swinging left and right, you can actually swing forward and backwards, and that gets a bit weird. But of course, it's very difficult to tell at what stage in the depth of the game your thief actually is, so you'll often find yourself launching yourself into midair. Now, the thief's changes are pretty awesome because they've been changed a fair amount, so that she can now screw with her oh god, she can now screw with the rope a hell of a lot more and do a lot of really cool physicsy things, which I like a lot. So basically, Pontius is now useful because in the previous game he was utterly pointless. The thief is really quite cool, but to be fair, the wizard, the changes they've made to him just don't make him feel like the wizard you once knew in Trine before, which is kind of disappointing. So here we can screw around with the old rope mechanics, so you can, in fact I'll show you all the cool stuff you can do. So you can extend the rope with the scroll wheel and move it about and stuff, and then you can sort of wrap it around things and create a lever-ish system. And of course I accidentally broke down that wall, which is pretty cool. So what you can do is you can attach the rope, extend it out a bit, and then attach it to itself, and then it'll stay there, which I think is pretty damn cool. And unlike the other games where I pretty much just stuck with a mage forever, because the mage could solve every problem known to mankind ever, which he still can, to be fair. I mean, when I was playing multiplayer with a few other people, you can pretty much solve everything with the mage, but it's still pretty nice and cool to switch between the two. And the main feature I found is that they've changed it so that, yes, the mage can do everything, but Pontius is so overpowered, being able to constantly gain height, and the rogue's jumping mechanics and rope mechanics are just so much better that you actually want to use it, because it feels cool to make lever systems. I won't collect that, I was just showing you that the game is now... it's now set back in a lot of depth, and I think the 3D thing would have worked. The problem that I have with the 3D is the fact that oh, I missed. There we go. There we go. There we go. Is that the camera is really quite terrible, to be brutally honest. And I think the 3D would have worked if the camera changing capabilities weren't so crap, which they are. And there was a point in one of the challenge missions where we literally couldn't go back, even though we had missed a couple of these Trine angles, because the camera just decided not to... see if I can extend that. The camera decided that it didn't want to go back, and so we couldn't see where we were going, and it was really, really friggin' annoying, to be honest. So, yeah, the 3D is cool. It looks pretty overall, but I'd say the main reason why people would complain about the 3D nature is because it's not been implemented very well. And I can understand why. I can see that. Yeah. So, was the 3D worth it? I guess it looks kind of pretty, but to be honest, I think I would have just preferred for them to spend all of the money they spent on the 3D, and they spent a large portion of the money. Like, they said that the budget for this game was like $15 million or something, which is incredible for an indie game. But, you know, a huge portion was spent on simply making all of the levels 3D. And to be perfectly honest, with the length of the story, I think I would have rather that they had spent that money on more story instead of 3D. I think the 3D would have been cool if they had a stupendously unlimited budget, but because they don't have a horribly unlimited budget, I would have much rather, you know, actually had a complete story, because as it stands, it's still technically early access. I mean, the game is pretty buggy as it stands, and it's not finished. There are bugs everywhere. The story definitely isn't finished. There's definitely, I'd say, of the 8 missions and the 3 that are actually tutorials, there's got to be at least another 10 missions worth of game left, of storyline at least, and they just haven't delivered that, probably because they blatantly ran out of money. I mean, the mechanics are great. They've changed the characters for the better, apart from Amadeus. I'm not a fan of what they've done with Amadeus. I think they've pretty much ruined him. He is still overpowered because he can basically one-shot everything with his boxes by dropping them on their heads, which would take Pontius like 10 hits to kill that guy, whereas he can just drop a box in his head. But the box throwing mechanic isn't there, and so it's just not fun anymore, which is really quite annoying, to be honest. Ooh, what's this? Nothing, apparently. So, yeah, I guess. Now, how do I open this? I've actually forgotten. Oh yes, of course. We did this accidentally the other day. So overall, it would have been a good game if they A, hadn't run out of money, B, hadn't wasted the money that they did have on 3D, and C, hadn't changed the wizard. I think what they did to the wizard was, oh dear, kind of ruined it for me, to be honest. I mean, one of the main things I remember from Trine is just playing the wizard, because making boxes was an awesome mechanic, and he didn't need to kill people with weapons because he could kill people with boxes, and that was cool. So that was a bit of a disappointment. However, the changes that they've made to Pontius and this bitch are pretty cool. Graphics are amazing. Storyline is I don't think storyline matters so much in Trine. I think for Trine, it was always a case of puzzles and complex gameplay first, and then story last. And looks became a relatively large part of Trine because, you know, it's a damn good looking game. But nah, the 3D didn't work out for him, I don't think. But honestly, this is probably one of my favorite games purely for these really awesome rope puzzles, which are excellent. I suppose it is kind of a shame that the wizard can pretty much solve every puzzle by himself by using copious amounts of boxes, but yeah. I think one of the key features I like about this game is that you can complete the entire game as one hero, but you can complete it as any of them, so you're not limited to just using this bitch or Pontius. Admittedly, the warrior Pontius does have quite a limited scope, I think. There are some puzzles which are blatantly extremely easy as Amadeus or the thief, because they can just teleport everywhere and shoot bows everywhere, whereas Pontius is very much a short-sighted character who still doesn't really do an awful lot. See? Imagine how difficult it would have been for Pontius to kill that guy. So yeah, Pontius is useful because he's broken, as opposed to useful because his mechanics are interesting. Come over here, damn it. And this is a key example of why the lighting effects are not necessarily the best idea to go to OTT on, because the game is very, very, very good looking, but you kind of miss out on a lot of the features of what the game looks like because you are shrouded in hue. Come on. I can't remember what I did here. Yes, I remember this. Now, this is actually a part of the game where me and my friend broke it horribly. I latched onto a ball, and then it dragged me inside the cage and I couldn't escape, and then I randomly fell down and died, so. Now, how many of these am I going to need? One should be enough. Physics is awesome, and I like the fact that the physics doesn't require copious amounts of graphics horsepower. Let's see if we can latch that onto here. Oh, shit. Overall, it's probably kept me more entertained than most puzzle games. But, to be honest, we spent about an hour yesterday battling with black screens, bugs, and broken things. So, I think this probably could have done with another 4 months in early access just to fix the bugs. Performance is fine. I would have liked for them to add a few more video options. And for them to, you know, actually finish the story. But, you know, what can you do? Come on, why aren't you... See, this is a... Oh, shit. This is an area where Amadeus is blatantly overpowered. Because he can solve every puzzle. Like so. Very easily. Whereas with Pontius and the... I mean... The Thief is a little bit easier, but... I'd say the Thief has the most interesting mechanics. Pontius has the most broken. And the Wizard is just... face roll easy. Way too easy. Now what can I do here? I'll just float around. No, that worked. I thought I was about to get stuck. So I'll probably leave it here because it's much of the same stuff. Ah, this is another one of the old ropey mechanics. I mean, one thing I would have liked to have seen a little bit more was a little bit more interaction with like sort of constantly shifting between each of the heroes, because at the moment you can just sort of deal with one and there's no real urgency to switch between the two. The thing with puzzle games is it's often a little bit more interesting when you really have to work for your skill, like if you have to attack something and then quickly switch to this guy and then drop a thing on him and then just, I don't know, something that makes switching between the characters a bit more valuable as opposed to, oh hey, the Wizard is my favorite character because he breaks the game. So yeah, anyway, I'll leave it there. And as we're now affiliated with Overclockers UK, I will of course name drop them. And if anybody is in need of some hardware to play Trine 3 and they decide to max out those super samplings on 4K, you're definitely going to need a 980 Ti. So check the old link below and the link that will appear on your screen now, and I'll see you on Thursday for the review. And of course join us on Saturday for Next Week in Gaming.